Hello everybody. Welcome to the Be Smart, Don't Start session 2. And we call this one Thanks But No Thanks. And we are the Mayor's Youth Leaders in Action with the Virginia Beach Human Services and the government. So thank you all for being here today. I'm excited to see everyone. 33 participants, that's great. I see a lot of people that I recognize in the participants, so I'm so excited you guys are here coming to support us. And if anybody was just wondering, that playlist, if you have it on Spotify, if you like those songs, it's called Soft Pop on Spotify. So it has a lot of great songs from like the early 2010s. It's so good. So just anybody was wondering. All right, let's gonna start with introductions. My name is Amaya Stukes. I am the membership coordinator of MYLA. This will be my second year in MYLA. I'm a senior at Tallwood High School. I am on commissions such as the Youth Coalition Action Team Commission, which is actually here helping us with YDAP today. I am also on the Passive Youth Leaders Roundtable Commission, and then I'm also on the Season of Nonviolence Commission with the Human Rights Committee. And then now I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to one of my peers, Ilias. Take it away, Ilias.
What's up? Hello, I'm Ilias Alaska, and I'm a junior actually at Lansdowne High School. I'm a member of MYLA, and I've been in MYLA for about, what is it, 6 years now. And I'm part of the CHKD committee, the Run Walk. I, I plan out the Run Walk event, also on the Parks and Rec Commission, and as of right now, I'm the lead of the Peer Preview program.
Yeah, Ilias is the OG. He's been here a while. Before we start with our presentation, I would just like to go over some WebEx etiquette for everybody. So please note that this session is being recorded. Just for those who are absent, they can go back and watch the session. Please keep yourself muted except during the icebreaker or Q&A. So basically, when it's appropriate to unmute yourself, please do so. And then when it's not appropriate, please do not make any interruptions or anything. Please use the hand raise icon for any questions that you may have, especially during the Q&A and the icebreaker, because we don't want everybody talking at the same time. And then please, we do encourage you to have your cameras on because we do like to see you. I know I sound like your teacher, but it does make everything better when we get to see you guys. So that's all I have for the WebEx etiquette. And so we're going to go ahead and get started with our icebreaker. So our question is today, what do you think is peer pressure? If you didn't know today, our little topic today is peer pressure. So you're more than welcome to reply in the chat or use the raise your hand icon to speak. So what do you think is peer pressure? There's no wrong answer, no stupid answer. Everybody has different versions of peer pressure. Okay, so I got a hand raise. Danielle Sweeney.
Yes, that's me.
Awesome, thank you, Danielle.
So, I think that peer pressure is when when you want to do something that other people are doing to look cool, when you think that it is wrong, or you know that it is wrong, but you do it anyway because
Right.
other people around you are doing it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Daniel. Good definition. Does anybody want to share their interpretation of peer pressure, a different one? So Amanda said in the chat, I think peer pressure is when your friends persuade you to do bad things when you're not supposed to. All right. Thank you, Amanda. Anybody else would like to share their definition? Peer pressure.
I got some messages, so I'm gonna go ahead and read them. Please make sure that when you send some answers, you are sending them to everybody and not only the host, okay? But I'm gonna go ahead and read these answers. So Patrick said, peer pressure is the pressure you receive from the people around you, such as classmates and friends. That's actually correct. We have Elizabeth. She said that is convincing somebody to do something they don't want to do. We also have Colin answer. I hope I'm saying your name right. If I'm not, please let me know in the chat. And they're saying when you are pressured to do things that you don't want to do by people you trust, like friends, family, etc. And we also have an answer from James that says peer pressure is when the people around you convince you to do things you normally wouldn't do. Thank you so
Awesome.
much for all the answers.
And then I have one privately as well from Margaret. She says peer pressure is when you're forced to do something and feel obligated to do it. Nice. Those are all great definitions. Thank you to everybody who participated. So now I'm going to hand it off to Ilias to begin our presentation.
Yep, those are really good answers. They're very close to the actual definition. And the actual definition is when friends or peers, such as classmates or friends, push you to engage in an activity that is appeared as cool, accepting, or liked. There are actually four types of peer pressure. There's number one, there's spoken, and there's unspoken, and then there's positive and negative. And the next slide will explain the spoken. Okay, so as the name suggests, this is when someone asks, suggests, or persuades one to engage in an activity. And this can be an example of someone simply talking to you, persuading you, oh, let's do this, let's do that. And it can also be someone insulting someone because they disagree to engage in an activity, or they can threaten to end a friendship, or they just persuade them by using reasoning. And then next is unspoken, and just as the name sounds, no words are spoken, just actions. So this form of peer pressure exists everywhere. You may not realize it, but it's literally everywhere, such as the clothing we wear, the words we say. And then you feel like you're supposed to dress a certain way to fit in with a group. For example, you want to fit in with a specific group and they wear t-shirts only. You feel compelled to wear t-shirts. And then next up, there's positive peer pressure, and this is actually really good peer pressure. So this is when a friend or a classmate persuades someone to engage in an activity that is beneficial and positive for the person. So this can come in many ways, such as study groups, persuading your friend to join a study group to get a better grade on their math test, or engaging in a sport that is really fun. And then lastly, there's also negative peer pressure, and this, just as it sounds, this is the opposite positive peer pressure. So this is when someone persuades you to engage in an activity that is harmful and not beneficial to you, either physically or mentally.
So as Ilias explained, there are various different types of peer pressure. And peer pressure sometimes is not avoidable. You're going to, it's going to be in front of you sometime in your life. And, you need strategies and ways how to reject that peer pressure and not actually fall into that hole that they're trying to get you into. So some ways to reject peer pressure is the first one is just to be polite. You know the saying, kill people with kindness? That song by Selena Gomez, how does it go? Killing with kindness, do 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 do. That song, basically, every time you have peer pressure, just think about that song and say, just kill them with kindness. Just politely say thanks, but no thanks. I'm not comfortable with this. Be as nice as you can. Explain that you're not interested, that you're not comfortable, and do it in the nicest way possible. That way nobody gets upset, nobody, gets angry, and there's just smooth sailing from there. The second strategy that we have is just simply leave the situation. Remove yourself from the situation, just the whole way. Just say, oh, just make up an excuse. Oh, my mother said I have to be home by blah, blah time, so I should probably get going. Say, oh, I have to go walk my goldfish and I'm going to go leave. So, just make up an excuse to leave the situation, especially if you're not comfortable. Do not pressure somebody. Don't let somebody pressure you into doing something that you are not comfortable with. So leave the situation, make up an excuse, say that you're hurting, you're tired. Just make sure that you get yourself out as safely and as quickly as possible. The third one, this is probably my favorite. Be assertive, stand strong, and be confident. If you're meek like a mouse and you're quiet and you look scared, they're going to walk all over you and they're going to be like, hey, this is going to be easy. She looks like she can do whatever we tell her to. And that's not something you want to do. You want to be assertive. You want to be loud. You want to repeat yourself. You need to stand your ground, be confident, say, I told you I'm not comfortable with this. Don't ask me again. I'm not going to repeat myself. I said I'm not comfortable, I'm not going to do it. And once you be loud and you be assertive, they're gonna, they're gonna back up rather than you just being all quiet and meek. You know what I'm saying? So that's definitely a way, probably my favorite way, is to be assertive because they know not to mess with you and know, hey, she already said it twice. I don't think we should ask her again. And then Miss Annie, thank you. I have two more for you. Another one is just completely suggest a different activity. Just say, hey, I'm not comfortable with this, but let's go to my house and swim. Let's go get some ice cream instead. Just try to, maneuver the conversation into a different way. Just say, I'm not comfortable. I don't want to do this. This has too many consequences. I know something else we can do that has way less consequences and is more fun. Just suggest something different and totally put what they're trying to do into the back of your mind. And then last but not least, we have ignore the suggestion. Pretend that you didn't hear the suggestion at all and just completely change the subject. Like, I asked Ilias, hey, Ilias, you want to bake with me? And Ilias is going to say,
I love that math test. So easy.
yes. Like they're gonna be taken back. Like, wow, like did you even hear what I said? And when you ignore a suggestion, it shows them that that suggestion that they suggested is not even worth considering, that you're not even like that suggestion is not even in your mind. That's nothing even to talk about. So when you completely ignore it, their feelings are gonna get hurt and they're gonna be like, oh my God, did she just ignore me? Yes, I did just ignore you because I don't want to do it. So that's definitely one of my other favorites. Just ignore the suggestion completely. Just say, oh my gosh, I want to go to McDonald's too. Let's go. Keep walking, and they're not going to bring it up again. So those were just some ways to reject peer pressure. And then now we have a wonderful speaker here with us. Her name is Ms. Patricia. She works with the Department of Human Services, and she is an educator within that department. So Ms. Patricia, if you could just take it away for us, that would be great.
Absolutely. Thank you guys. And an awesome job. I love how you said walk your goldfish. I don't know if everybody caught that, but I was definitely laughing out loud. So that's really cool. Good afternoon, everyone, or I guess good evening. My name is Patricia Crumrine, and as they mentioned, I am with the Department of Human Services. I actually work for Behavioral Health Wellness Prevention Services, and I am an educator with that unit. I've had the privilege to be working with this unit for over 15 years, which is incredible to say, actually. And throughout that time frame, I had gone to school. I had gone to Old Dominion University. I studied biology and really loved the medical field. Thought that was my route at first, but became very interested in some of the things that I was learning when I was here at this unit. So that opened a door for me to go on back to school, and I've gotten a background in counseling. And now here I am, and I get the opportunity to educate others on different topics, including things with behavioral health, mental health, and substance use, or substance abuse really falls into that category. So I'm super excited to be here with you all, and I'm so glad that MYLA has invited us out to just chat with you a little bit about different topics. And so, and on the next slide, we'll kind of jump right on in this. On that next slide, this kind of bridges what you all got an opportunity to hear last session. And if you weren't here last session, that's okay. They had talked a little bit about vaping, especially with nicotine products. And so what we're going to be discussing today is that you actually can vape other substances other than nicotine. And I know that I am not telling you something that you did not know. Right. But the thing about e-cigarettes and being in school is that there's a zero tolerance policy, of course, especially in the city of Virginia Beach. There's a zero tolerance policy with any substance use, and that does not stop substance use to be happening in schools. Right. It greatly reduces it, but there's still things that can kind of slip through the cracks. And one of the reasons is because the products look very similar to some of the things that you all bring to school anyways, like your pens and highlighters, and they can really be hidden by those in the classrooms, right? Sometimes teachers may not recognize the e-cigarettes and such, and smoke detectors won't catch the aerosol, right? And typically speaking, there is no odor associated with the aerosol that's exhaled from e-cigarettes. Now, there are some that can give off an odor, but typically speaking, it's something that is made to conceal, right? And the reason for that is it's helping individuals be able to hide what they're doing, right? And that is a marketing strategy there. So y'all talked a little bit about that. What we're going to be diving into a little bit on this next slide is actually looking at vaping other products like marijuana, right? And so according to the National Institute of Drug Abuse, that long word there is tetrahydrocannabinol, right? If y'all ever win a Jeopardy question there, just make sure you cite me. If there's money involved, I'm just kidding, right? If you win a door prize, it's all good. Just know that you got it from this segment here. But THC is what it's called for short, and that's the chemical that's responsible for the most of marijuana's psychological effects. And that chemical is actually what comes into play when determining if something is legal or not, right? So there are different forms of marijuana. Of course, you can have it in the dry herbal form. The flower of the plant is dried. It can be in a blunt or used in a bong, things like that. There's also marijuana oil or wax and synthetic forms of marijuana, which just means that it's man-made, it's mimicked to look like the natural substance. And once upon a time, that was legal until they saw the reaction to people using it, right? And so that's actually one of the key things here. If you look at any type of substance use, what we see is that there is something that's being utilized. There's some type of reaction to it. And if it's a negative reaction, and it's a negative reaction to a lot of people, that's really where that research kind of kicks in. And then we have to kind of dial things back, right? So it's the same thing with tobacco products that y'all kind of discussed last time. It's the same thing that we're kind of seeing with newer things coming out like vaping. It may start out as something that's A-okay, it makes you feel good, things like that. And then we're like, oh, but smoking causes cancer and a host of other illnesses. And oh, THC actually affects the teenage brain a lot differently than it does in adults. And there's some things that we really need to look at here, right? So that is actually something that really stands out across the board. And that's one of the common denominators when you're looking at anything and educating yourself about different substances, right? That liquid THC, there's a form there and that's what's used in vapes, right? So it can be applied to a vaping device the same way that flavored nicotine liquid is, right? And lastly, there is the use of hash oil that is becoming a little more common. And we're actually going to, on that next slide, we're going to talk about that one a little more. And the commonality with that, it's in a process called dabbing, and y'all may be familiar, with the dance. I don't even know, is dabbing still in? Is that still a thing? Kind of, sort of? I don't know. If it is, okay. If not, then you know what it is, right? If you need to look it up, go ahead and look it up. But the THC, when you're looking at dabbing, the THC is extracted into oil, and it can be evaporated into a sticky goo or wax that's smoked, or it could be vaporized, right? So that goo can also be further refined and made into this hard glass-like substance, and that's often referred to as shatter, right? Now, keeping up with all these names with marijuana and all the methods of being used, that's a whole subject in and of itself. But just for the purposes here, that's what, when you're refining that a little more, it's called shatter, right? So dabbing is a method that's used to convert marijuana into a concentrate. And so it uses butane, which is highly flammable, to extract the THC from the cannabis plant. And so BHO, it's also known as butane hash oil, honey oil, butter, crumble, shatter, or wax, right? And the thing with it is that the THC content in dabs ranges from 60% to as high as 90%. Now, before we move on to that next slide, I'm just going to pause here for a moment, because that's actually one of the biggest things when you're talking about the potency of a substance, or how a substance really is affecting your body. We know that THC is that psychological component. If it has 60% or as high as 90%, that is a very potent substance, right? And it's a lot different than maybe in different time frames when people were utilizing it or using different methods, right? And that comes into play when you're talking about how THC really affects the brain. So we're going to see in this next slide, Miss Annie's actually going to get a video up and running for you. And this is really just talking about some of the dangers associated with utilizing marijuana in this way.
The following program contains graphic images that may be disturbing. Parents are advised that these images may not be suitable for young children.
Last year in California alone, 30 people lost their lives due to a dangerous drug trend that's literally blowing up across America.
Wax, dabs, shatter, honey, these are all the street names for a very concentrated form of cannabis that can give you the high of 5 joints in a single dose. It can cause psychosis, extreme paranoia, blackouts, and hallucinations. But that's not why police are calling this the meth of marijuana. In order to make dabs, you have to use butane, and according to the DEA, it has led to violent home explosions. And the number of users are growing, with more and more teens jumping on the dab trend. Is their future up in smoke?
Joining us now is reconstructive surgeon and head of the Grossman Burn Center, Dr. Peter Grossman, and addiction psychiatrist and chief medical officer at Elements Behavioral Health, Dr. David Sack. Welcome to you.
Welcome. I think we really want to try to hit it home for anyone watching why this can be so dangerous.
What does make dabs so much more dangerous than traditional marijuana?
So when you make butane hash oil, what you're doing is extracting the most potent chemical part of the marijuana plant. So in the old days, marijuana had a concentration of about 5%. And now when you're looking at hash oil, you're talking about a concentration of 80%. So when you think about how a drug works, there are 2 issues. One is how potent or strong it is. And then the other is how fast does it get to your brain? And in the case of dabbing, it gets there right away and it's incredibly potent. 1 dab could be as potent as 5 joints.
Forgive me, but it seems like a terrible high. I mean, based on all the descriptions of it, it just hallucinations, psychosis, just nausea. It sounds terrible, but it sounds like teens for some reason are being attracted to this, which is frightening because not only of what can happen in terms of their mental reaction, you're seeing a lot of life-changing catastrophic injuries in the hospital.
The problem is, whatever your rationale is for taking it, it's a bigger issue with manufacturing it, because manufacturing it is incredibly dangerous. What they're doing is taking butane and instilling the butane over the leaf or the twigs from the marijuana, and they distill and extract the hash oil. The problem is that butane is incredibly flammable, and it takes a small spark from a pilot light, from a cigarette, to create an incredible flame. Now, that's not just a flame, though. It's an explosion. And the patients that we see are massively burned with multiple injuries, not just the flames itself, but pulmonary injuries. And in addition to that, the flames are so intense that it creates this explosion, and we see houses burn down. We see collateral damage from people throughout the house that get injured who weren't even near this explosion.
So to close this, it's troubling. The dangers of this are obviously twofold. Everyone needs to be aware of these dangers of dabbing, especially during a time when even my perspective has changed over the last 9 years we've been hosting this show, my perspective towards medical marijuana, and so it's more ubiquitous. Certain states it's legal, so parents out there certainly need to be aware. And also, I'm sure there are plenty of adults out there who are intrigued by it. Just know that this can truly be deadly. We'll have more on it on our website, thedoctorstv.com. Dr. Sack, Dr. Grossman, thank you so much.
All right. So one of the things that they mentioned in there, they really focused on the the issue with dabbing and the results of butane and things like that. But one of the things that they had also mentioned was having the potency of about 5 blunts or 5 joints, right? That's huge, okay? And so if you took anything away from that video outside of the fact that there are a lot of external dangers outside of just being able to put, you know, the substance in your body, there are some environmental issues there as well. But the other thing is that not only is it extremely potent, but that THC is the biggest thing that has that effect on adolescent brains, right? And then they also mentioned medical marijuana. And they also mentioned how some things are, or in some states, marijuana is legal. So there are a lot of conflicting statistics out there. And I commend you all as far as being those who are increasing your knowledge on these different substances. And I encourage you all to continue doing research on these as you're really getting more information throughout this series here. But one of the things that are pointed out, or one of the biggest topics, if you will, is CBD versus just medicinal marijuana. And are there any medical benefits to marijuana, right? And so in order to understand that, it's just to understand where CBD is derived, right? So you have 2 different types. You have full spectrum or isolated CBD. Now, the full spectrum CBD is derived from the marijuana plant, right? Whereas isolated is commonly derived from the hemp plant. Now, the thing about that is marijuana and hemp are pretty much cousins, right? They're in the same family. And it's very hard, it's like identical cousins almost. It's very hard to tell them apart. But the major difference is that in full spectrum, there's a higher amount of THC than isolated CBD. Whereas in isolated, it's only CBD and it may contain traces of THC, right? Full spectrum is illegal in states where marijuana is illegal. And with isolated, it's not as potent as full spectrum, and the legality really varies from state to state, right? So even if marijuana is legal in different states, there's still an age requirement. So anyone who is on this call who is under the age of 21, any of the topics that we're talking about, whether it be legal at the age of 21 or not, it would still be illegal for you to use, whether you're in a state that it's legal or not, right? So that's something to kind of keep in mind as well. And so on the next slide, we're actually going to switch gears a little bit and talk about alcohol. Now, this is something that not a lot of people are even aware of. When you say smoking alcohol, people are usually like, what? I didn't even know that that was a thing, or like, why would you even go through that trouble, right? And so let's start off with what it is. So it's vaporizing or smoking alcohol is really the process of preparing alcohol so that it can be inhaled rather than consumed as a liquid. Now, some people think like the benefits are, you know, lesser calories and things like that. And this was popular at a time. It's not as popular nowadays, but there was a spike in in this popularity. And again, just like those trends I was talking about, something seems like it's a great idea. It looks good, makes you feel good for a moment. But if there are a lot of fatalities associated with it, a lot of deaths, or a lot of adverse reactions or negative consequences, then there's more research done and start backtracking a little bit, right? So some of the dangers, it puts you at high risk for alcohol poisoning. And that's because it's not being consumed through the digestive system. So you can't really measure how much you're inhaling, how much alcohol content you're inhaling. It can damage your lungs. It can cause harm to your brain, especially harmful to youth. And again, I'm not picking at the youth population here. It's just fact that the adolescent brain is not fully developed. In fact, there are adults with brains that aren't fully developed, right? Your brain's not fully developed until the age of 25. So just kind of keep that in mind when you see things like especially harmful to youth. It's not just saying that to deter you from using any substances. It's really saying, hey, you actually have a different makeup right now than an adult would. an adult that's 25 or older at least. Okay. So it could also increase your risk for alcohol addiction or alcoholism. It's impossible, again, to gauge how much alcohol you've consumed, and your body has no way of expelling that alcohol, right? On the next slide, we're actually going to be seeing a video, I believe. Yeah, so we're going to be seeing a video that's actually talking a little bit more about vaping alcohol, a little bit of how it's done, and especially some of the consequences associated with it.
A deadly way of getting drunk is making a comeback.
Smoking alcohol. It's a way of drinking without the calories, and that's one of the so-called perks.
But as Courtney Gary shows us, this low-cal trend is also the most dangerous way to get drunk. Courtney?
Yeah, it is. The smoking alcohol craze has stayed mostly underground, but the internet gives teens step-by-step instructions on how to smoke alcohol. Now there's a push to educate parents and teens about this potentially deadly way of drinking. For those who love to drink but are watching their weight, smoking alcohol is the in thing in some bars in cities like LA and Chicago. And now teens are trying this at home.
Anything you smoke, that's not good.
It looks like some sort of bong. Because it sounds nutty. Oh my gosh. How does that work?
A simple YouTube search will show you how. Video after video illustrating how to vaporize and inhale booze.
They seem to kind of know what they're doing. A little crazy, maybe. If you don't want the calories, I guess that's the way to go.
But ER Dr. Ryan Murphy insists the risks outweigh any potential weight loss benefits.
Alcohol poisoning, rapid intoxication, loss of consciousness.
This fad is making a comeback thanks in part to the internet. Chris Wardlow is a drug and alcohol abuse prevention specialist. He says young people are 6 times more likely to die from alcohol than all the other drugs combined.
The primary reason being is that it impairs their judgment. And then you put them under the influence of alcohol, and it just intensifies the risks that they're willing to take.
The trend inspired devices like the Vaportini, sold online for about $35, with everything you need to smoke alcohol except the booze. Today's TMJ4 reached out to the maker of the Vaportini, but our emails were not returned. But according to the company's website, it defends smoking alcohol. This has the advantage of no calories, no carbs, no impurities. Unlike traditional consumption of spirits, Vaportinis give more control. Shortly after exhaling, all of the effects of the alcohol consumed are felt. But Dr. Murphy says that's why smoking alcohol is so dangerous. You are essentially getting intoxicated without giving your body any way to fight back.
The body's defense mechanism, if you drank too much, would be you get sick and you vomit and the alcohol comes back out. However, if you're breathing the alcohol in, you don't really have that safety mechanism.
And some people smoke alcohol by pouring it over dry ice, but health experts warn that method even more dangerous. The dry ice is toxic, so inhaling the vapors exposes you to high levels of carbon monoxide, which can really make you sick. Fewer calories, but the balance here, not good.
Yeah, sounds like a dangerous way to get high.
According to doctors, it is.
Yeah. All right, thanks, Courtney.
Thank you, Courtney.
All right, so if you're looking at the benefits or the consequences, and really when you're looking at researching any type of substance, as far as if it's something that has been tried, or maybe you have a peer that has tried it, or you know that some of your close friends are trying things, and you're kind of worried about how safe they are, and some of the consequences that they may not know. You always want to weigh the benefits versus the consequences, right? And that can fall into different categories. The health benefits, legalities that are associated with it, and what the actual substance does to your body, right? So marijuana is a stimulant to your body, which means it kind of speeds up all of those involuntary actions of your body. So your breathing, your heart rate, your blood pressure. And alcohol does the opposite effect. So if you're inhaling alcohol and you're bypassing all of your body's defense mechanisms, that just means that it can't do anything to get the alcohol out, right? And so it can wind up being something where you're doing something with, you're inhaling the alcohol at one moment, and then very, very quickly, you would need to be transported to an emergency room, right? And even when you get there, it's very difficult for the doctors to be able to do anything because, again, it's not going through your digestive system, right? So very dangerous way of utilizing those substances there. And so when you're looking at your peers, because we're not under the impression as adults, we're not under the impression that no teenager, adolescent is ever not confronted with maybe a substance, right? Even if you're not personally the one who it has happened to, it doesn't mean that it just does not exist in the adolescent population. So there are a couple of things that you can look for if you're trying to see if your peer is one who is vaping, you're not really sure, right? So they have things that like pens that aren't really pens, or you have like new scents and it's not scents as in like a scent. It's sounding like I'm saying something else, but new scents that's not necessarily a perfume or that you get from like Bath and Body Works or things like that, right? And you can also look out for typical signs of marijuana use, like red eyes, lethargy, and lethargy means just like increased tiredness. So you're always looking like you're sleepy, even though you've gotten sleep. Increased cravings for snacks, you may hear it as the munchies, right? Any type of confusion, anxiety, dropping studies or usual activities, changing of friends, right? Or increased secretiveness. Any of those things can kind of point towards maybe substance use, right? Now, it's important to note that it's these things together. Anything that's isolated, or if it's just one sign, it's not just saying, hey, stop everyone in their tracks and go get them help. That's not what that's saying. But it is saying, hey, let's look out for this and see, what exactly are you doing? Because there are different reasons why people may be dabbling into different things. And if there is additional help that's needed, then you would be able to get them to some right resources, right? Another thing, two big things that peers see in their groups of people who are utilizing marijuana. It's increased laziness and increase in memory loss, right? Short-term memory loss. So it's not like they're like, who am I? But maybe forgetting like homework assignments back to back, or forgetting to let their dog out, or forgetting small chores around the house and always getting in trouble with their parents, or forgetting to pick up little sister, pre-COVID times, right? Forgetting to pick up little sister from school, things like that, right? There can also be an increase of water intake. There is propylene glycol that attracts water and holds water molecules from its environment. So this can lead to e-cigarette users to have a constant state of dry mouth, right? And so that increased water intake may be an example of that. Now, if they're like doing things like just trying to be healthier, of course, that wouldn't be an increase in water intake there, right? Some e-cigarette users develop a sensitivity to caffeine and curb their caffeine intake. There may be nosebleeds associated with it, again, with that water holding effect from e-cigarette vapors. And then, of course, a telltale sign would be containers of butane. And that actually is, as you saw from those pictures, and I know that those are really graphic pictures, but I'm hoping that that would just help you remember that that's not something to be messing with, right? Highly flammable. It does not take much to spark that explosion. And it's something that can be very hard to control, okay? So with that said, that is all I have for you all. Thanks for letting me have a couple moments to share with you. And I'll throw it back on over to you all and they can open the question and answer.
Okay, so thank you everybody for listening, and thank you, Ms. Patricia, for your expertise. And now we're going to hand the Q&A over to Miss Annie, so she's going to go over the rules and things like that for you guys.
Okay, thank you so much, Patricia, for all the information. So for the Q&A section, you have two options. You can either raise your hand and, like go ahead and ask a question to Miss Patricia, or you can also write your questions down in the chat and I can read those for our guest speaker. So we are open to any questions that you have about today's topic or vaping in general. We also have here our speaker from the last session. So if you have any questions about, vaping in general, like the first topics that we talk about, that was, the dangers of vaping, please, go ahead and ask those questions as well.
I do have a question, if you don't mind, while everybody else is thinking. So, Miss Patricia, it's like the smoking alcohol, does it taste like alcohol, or is it just taste like nothing and they're still getting high from it? Like, do they still get like that taste and sourness that alcohol provides?
It wouldn't be as potent, of course, but if you think of like anything with your senses, if you're smelling something, it's almost like you can already taste it and you're just like getting yourself ready for it. When you're inhaling the alcohol, of course there's going to be some type of difference between the two, just like there are different flavorings with nicotine, right? So now it may not be, again, as pungent or as strong, and it wouldn't feel as strong when it's going down, but there is some type of taste that's associated with it.
Thank you.
I'm just gonna wait for a few more minutes in case somebody's typing on the chat.
I had a question, if that's okay.
Sure.
So, I'm like a pretty non-confrontational person, and just kind of like if I'm in a group, I just kind of do what other people are doing. I've never done drugs or anything like that, but what would you say is the best way to just kind of avoid that situation, especially if you're someone who doesn't typically like kind of stand up for themselves?
Oh, is that a question for me or
Sure.
Oh, okay. I can totally jump in there. And thank you for even asking that question in the first place, because I can't tell you how many people that are in your shoes that may be feeling the exact same way, and they would leave a situation similar to this and without having that question answered. So one of the things is eventually being able to give yourself a little more credit in that realm, right? So even if it's not engaging in a confrontation and just saying, absolutely not, I'm not standing up for myself or anything like that, or, kind of getting aggressive with it. If it's not in that sense, it's really doing some of those tips that they talked about in the way beginning of this presentation. And it's just, oh, you know what? I've got to go. Oh my goodness, I forgot that I had this on my schedule. And, it really is, you all, taking a look at the people that you're hanging out with, right? So there really is an opportunity there for you to kind of grow into the type of person you are and your values and things like that. And I know I sound very adult-like talking to teenagers, right? I know I sound very adult-like that, but just note that adolescence is one of the toughest time frames of your lives because of the fact that you're developing some of those skills there. So utilizing that excuse for now, and then as you continue to do that repetition there, you're telling yourself subconsciously that, hey, I am standing up for myself. It doesn't have to look like everybody else's, right? It doesn't have to like be with the attitude or like the aggressiveness, but it is telling you like, hey, I chose not to do that. And your subconscious is like, you go, girl, right? I don't know how you talk to yourself, but that would be how my subconscious talks to me. It's like, you go, Miss Crumrine, you did that, right? So when you do that over and over, you'll find that you're getting to be a lot more comfortable. I think a lot of the times what you see is that you're uncomfortable with even starting in the first place. So as soon as you do like those little baby steps, it'll really start building up over time, and you'll find that you're declining things. And it may not be confrontational, but you just decline it before something's even brought up to you, because people really respect someone who is confident in themselves and knows how to say no in a situation that they're not comfortable in. Okay, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
I also have a comment here from James, and I think he was answering as well to that question. So he says, try not to be there. If you know and trust the people and they are really your friends, they shouldn't try to force you to do anything. So that's just like one of the comments we got from another participant. Amaya, did you want to add something to that question?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say like the suggestion we had before is just like completely ignoring it. I assume that like if you're like really shy, then you're like probably really good at ignoring people and like just diverting the subject off. So like you can just ignore it and try to, introduce a new situation or a new topic as well. And like Miss Patricia said, the more you do it, the more comfortable you're going to get with yourself. So in time, you will be able to say, hey, I said I don't want to do it, so I'm not going to do it. And so eventually you will get to that point where you're like, where you do become confrontational and become more confident in yourself. It's just like she said, it's just baby steps. So you just got to start out small, start out by making an excuse. Hey, I have to go pay my taxes or something. Just make something up. But then eventually, as you go on and you get more confident in yourself, and you just have to trust in yourself and just say, hey, I can do it. This is about me and my safety. This is eventually, I don't want to get in trouble. I have so much on the line. You will eventually gain that confidence to say, hey, I don't want to do this. I told you once, I'm not going to tell you again. No, let's go do something else. So it just definitely baby steps and just try to work with those different strategies as you go throughout, life. And also make sure you surround yourself with people who have the same interests as you. People like me and Bella, we both love Justin Bieber. And so I know that we're probably never going to get into, in trouble because we're just fanning over Justin Bieber. So like, just surround people who have the same interests as you, people who like to do stuff that you like to do, people that you definitely can trust. And it does take a while to build those relationships, but just a combination of everything, the baby steps, the gaining confidence, the having the right friends, and then, you'll be good to go.
Thank you, Maya. Okay, I don't see any more questions. If there is something that you really want to know, but you're a little bit shy to ask right now, please make sure that you send me an email later on and we can answer those questions for you, okay?
Just some reminders and announcements before we go. Our next session is April 14th at 4 p.m. 4 p.m. same time. I'm sure there'll be some reminders for you about the next session. Also, your community service hours. You have to attend all 3 sessions to receive community service hours for attending our Be Smart Don't Start sessions. I believe you'll get 3 community service hours, if I'm not mistaken. Miss Annie will correct me. And then in the future, we do plan to have a run walk on May 2nd at Mount Trashmore. At this moment in time, we do plan to have it in person on Mount Trashmore. And we also would like to give you guys some free goodies and t-shirts. So if you are comfortable with that, you could put like your size t-shirt in the comments, or you could email Miss Annie you can email us at nyla@bbgov.com in the contact us session. Also, like, put your questions there if you have any questions that come up later. Also follow our Instagram, and if you would like to hear from Miss Patricia some more, make sure to email her at that email right there. So don't forget to put your t-shirt size in the chat, I believe, if you want to participate in the run walk. Or if you're not comfortable, you can email it to Miss Annie at our email in the contact us session. Yeah, so we'd just like to thank you for coming to our Be Smart Don't Start session with us today.
Thank you so much for answering, and thank you so much for being here. We will see you in the next session.